reason why this is great. Okay, what President Trump is basically doing is he's saying, listen, Iran, you can have a nuclear program or hopes, aspirations toward a nuclear program, or you can have an economy. You cannot have both. Because what this effectively is going to do is snap back sanctions. Now, it's possible Congress may have to pass new sanctions, but that will happen. Congress will pass new sanctions against Iran. Already, foreign companies that do business with Iran are being put in the crosshairs of the U.S. Financial system. The companies like Boeing that have just signed major contracts with Iran, those contracts are going to have to be revoked as well. They should be. Iran has been using billions of dollars provided to them by the United States in order to pursue terrorism around the world. Iran has been using all that money to build up its nuclear program, their missile program more specifically. Their nuclear program has sort of been on hold, but they've maintained all of their technology, and they were just going to relaunch that as soon as the deadline was up, which was going to happen in 2025 anyway. So Iran has been, they built up their military, I believe, 40% since the Iran deal, all despite a massive decline in their economy. All of which goes to show that these were not a bunch of moderates. The lie that we were sold by the Obama administration is that there were a bunch of moderates in Iran. And if we could just reach out to those moderates in the Iranian administration, and if we could give them something, like money, if we could just give them money, then maybe they would be emboldened to make friends with us. Maybe they would become friendly. Maybe they would stop everything they've been doing with this nuclear program. And this is the lie that the Obama administration sold. And it was a lie. Ben Rhodes admitted as much. He admitted there are no moderates in the Iranian administration. Hassan Rouhani is not a moderate. And the fact that the Obama administration lied about it allowed the deal to go through. Well, Obama told a bunch of lies about this yesterday. He was very upset because his signal foreign policy achievement, really his only foreign policy achievement, was this Iran deal. And here is what he said. He said, the reality is clear. The JCPOA is working. That is a view shared by our European allies, independent experts, and the current U.S. Secretary of Defense. The JCPOA, that's the Joint Coalition Agreement, is in America's interest. It has significantly rolled back Iran's nuclear program. It has not significantly rolled back Iran's nuclear program. All it has done is put it on hold briefly while Iran takes all of that money and builds up all of their other capabilities. Obama made sure that the Iran deal did not include restrictions on funding of terrorism or development of ballistic missile technology. Those are the two technologies that, when hooked up to the bomb, boom, you have a nuclear weapon and at least two delivery mechanisms, ballistic missiles and terrorist groups funded by Iran. Obama then added that some of the countries of Europe have signed on to the deal in the belief that the Iranians can be trusted, quote, walking away from the JCPOA turns our back on America's closest allies, and an agreement that our country's leading diplomats, scientists, and intelligence professionals negotiated. Okay, first of all, no one liked the deal when it was signed. The polls showed Americans did not like the Iran deal when it was signed. He could not get a majority of Congress to approve his deal. This was not a treaty because he could not get 60 senators to approve of the JCPOA. As for the notion that the Iran deal's abandonment turns our back on American allies, that's kind of weird because it seems like all of our allies in the region, like our actual allies in the region, are pretty excited that we're walking away from the deal. Here, for example, is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Here was his response to the announcement.
Israel fully supports President Trump's bold decision today to reject the disastrous nuclear deal with the terrorist regime in Tehran. Israel has opposed the nuclear deal from the start because we said that rather than blocking Iran's path to a bomb, the deal actually paves Iran's path to an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs, and this within a few years' time.
Okay, and this, of course, is exactly true. By the way, it's not just Israel who supports Trump's move here. Saudi Arabia supports Trump's move here. The UAE supports Trump's move here. Egypt will support Trump's move here. Jordan will support Trump's move here. Obama built an anti-Iranian alliance because he was so pro-Iran. This was the unintended consequence of Obama's foreign policy. From 2007 on, Barack Obama was pursuing a foreign policy. He wanted a foreign policy that made Iran a regional power. This caused Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan to look at Israel and say, we might need to make common cause with the Jews in order to fight off the Iranians. And that's exactly what has happened. Okay, Obama is still out there defending the deal, of course. He says that the agreement was an agreement between my administration and the Iranian government, and look at all these other countries who are mad. Well, how about the fact that this was an agreement that was not approved by Congress in the first place? Again, a treaty must be approved by 2/3 of the Senate. Okay, it is not something that can be done just because the President of the United States signs a piece of paper, which is the reason that Trump could simply come out and rip up the piece of paper in the first place. Okay, Obama also argued that the JCPOA had worked in rolling back Iran's nuclear program. That is not true in the slightest. David Albright is the president and founder of the Institute for Science and International Security. He told Bloomberg, after Israeli intelligence retrieved a warehouse full of documents related to the Iranian nuclear program, quote, the most significant thing is that this is a warehouse collection intended to be used later for reconstitution. They could have destroyed those documents, but these were being carefully protected and hidden with the intention to reuse them when they launched their weapons program. In other words, Iran is already looking at the possibility of ramping up their nuclear program. And as soon as this deal was killed, as soon as Trump said the deal was over, the Iranians immediately responded by suggesting that they were going to restart their nuclear program and also fund more terrorism. So that sort of gives the lie to the idea these were a bunch of moderates who had been emboldened by Trump. If they're really moderates, then what you would have expected is that Trump kills the deal and they say, oh, well, that's really terrible. You know, I really think that we should get rid of our nuclear program anyway because we're moderate. Let's reach out to the Trump administration rather, and let's try to cut a new deal with the Trump administration. Instead, they said, nope, you know what? Going to ramp that nuclear program right back up. Here was their actual response. Okay, this is clip 13. Here's their actual response of Iranian members of parliament, which is a shadow parliament, doesn't really exist anyway, burning a U.S. flag on the floor of the Iranian parliament and chanting death to America in Farsi. And what you're watching here, what you're hearing, is the sound of them trying to use a lighter to light a flag, and then they're chanting death to America. The entire parliament chanting death to America. Okay, so number one, as Ben Domenech points out, they are garbage with lighters. They just don't know how they work, apparently, in the Iranian parliament. But second of all, these were the moderates, right? These are the people in parliament. These were the people that Obama supposedly wanted to elevate to power. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So, you know, again, these are the folks that we are supposed to trust with all this. But Obama thinks that they are trustworthy. He thinks they're great. He says that Iran is complying with the agreement. He says that the U.S. intelligence community has continued to find that Iran is meeting its responsibilities under the deal. Again, the point being that the deal itself was so fatally flawed that Iran could fund Hezbollah, Iran could fund Hamas, Iran could fund al-Qaeda, Iran could develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. None of that would have violated the deal because Obama signed a garbage deal because Obama was a garbage president. Okay, finally, Obama argues that the JCPOA does not expire. Here's just a lie. He says, the prohibition on Iran ever obtaining a nuclear weapon is permanent. Some of the most important and intrusive inspections codified by the JCPOA are permanent. Even as some provisions in the JCPOA do become less strict with time, this won't happen until 10, 15, 20, 25 years into the deal. Yeah, except that that's a complete lie. Everybody knows that as soon as this deal is up in 10 years, which really means in 8 years at this point, Iran was going to rush to build a nuclear weapon. And again, they say that that's exactly what they are going to do right now. It's not just Barack Obama making these idiotic claims. It's also members of his administration. The Pod Save Tehran crowd is very upset about all of this. All the people over at Pod Save America. I've invited people from Pod Save America on this program before, by the way. They are not interested. I'm not surprised. But it's not just Obama. It's all of his former lackeys who are very, very upset about this. Samantha Power tweeted. She's the former UN ambassador. She tweeted, quote, I will never forget the dark cloud that hung over the White House in the years Iran was advancing nuclear program and Obama was briefed on all the risks of using military force. Trump has demolished America's credibility and paved the way for Iran to restart its nuclear program. First of all, there's this really weird nostalgia that Samantha Power is talking about where, you know, there was a dark and terrible time when Iran was a threat to the world. And then came the Iran deal, and the Iran deal solved all the problems. Okay, let's be real about this for a second. Samantha Power is a person who wrote a book, it made her famous, all about why the U.S. could not stand idly by during genocides. She then presided over a Syrian policy that resulted in the slaughter of 500,000 human beings in Syria, and she strengthened the regime that backed the Syrian regime, namely the Iranian regime. So, oh, how terrible. Those dark days when Iran was a threat to Iran's still a threat to the world. Iran's been more of a threat to the world since the JCPOA than they were before the JCPOA. Iran has increased its development of ballistic missile technology. They've increased their funding of terrorism. They've increased their military budget. They've continued to back Assad. They've taken over Lebanon. They've pushed Hamas into prominence again. They've pushed, in Yemen, Iranian-backed parties into power. And yet, Samantha Power thinks that Trump is the real problem here. Then there's Ben Rhodes, the former Obama national security aide. He tweeted, quote, one tragicomic element of Trump's presidency is the more he tries to tear down Obama's legacy, the bigger he makes Obama look. First of all, Ben Rhodes is a former fiction writer who wrote fiction on the Iran deal. I mean, he's the one who went out and admitted to the American public that he lied over and over and over about the Iran deal, and that so had Obama talking about moderates in Iran. In a second, I'm going to play you the inspiring words of John Kerry, whose face is in a stage of full-on collapse. It's like, as a former friend of mine used to say, his face looks like it's a mudslide in the Hollywood Hills. John Kerry, who had been spending the last couple of weeks running around the globe trying to gin up support for this garbage deal. He was very upset yesterday, and here he was ripping into President Trump. John Kerry reporting for duty.
What the president has done by withdrawing unilaterally is place the United States in breach of this agreement. He has literally taken a situation where there was no crisis and created crisis by transferring to Iran sanctions that were meant with respect to the nuclear agreement itself. That what the president has done is unilaterally broken a multilateral agreement that was working to prevent Iran from having a nuclear
garbage
weapon.
piece of crap Secretary of State. I mean, he's just a terrible Secretary of State. Trump had every right to do this. You know why? Because you and your garbage administration decided to push this agreement through without the approval of the American public or the Congress. End of story. Okay, Congress has final say on treaties. You decided to go it alone, and guess what? That's how it works. If you sign an executive order, Trump can reverse that executive order. And if you sign an agreement without the permission of Congress, then Trump can revoke that too. And that's exactly what Trump did yesterday. So good for Trump. Good for Trump. And John Kerry, by the way, was one of the worst secretaries of state in American history. Just really an awful Secretary of State. Look at the breakdown on the global stage of America's credibility. Trump restored that credibility yesterday. He didn't finish that credibility. He didn't hurt that credibility. He helped restore that credibility in the first place. The reason he helped restore that credibility is very simple. America's credibility was shot. We had lied to our own people in order to promote Tehran. And now Trump said no more. And you can see the effect of this, okay? And I'll show you that you can see the effect of this. Here's how. Okay, so today, Mike Pompeo is going to return to the United States with several detainees from North Korea. And so the line was supposed to be that Donald Trump was going to blow up the world. Donald Trump was going to lead to nuclear proliferation everywhere. Donald Trump was going to lead to conflagrations that would consume millions of human beings. And the latest indicator of this was that he pulled out of the Iran deal and that North Korea would therefore say, well, we can't trust the United States to keep a deal we sign with them. Therefore, we must pursue nuclear weapons right now. Except that's not what's happening, is it? That's not what's happening in the slightest. Instead, it turns out that North Korea is trying to cut a deal with President Trump. You know that crazy President Trump, that threatening President Trump, that President Trump who just pulled out of the Iran deal? And North Korea is now trying to cut some sort of deal with President Trump. The latest evidence being that Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, a good Secretary of State, unlike John Kerry, is on his way to North Korea, and he is expected to return with 3 Americans detained in North Korea. Okay, 2 of the detainees, Tony Kim and Kim Hak-sung, have been held since 2017. The 3rd detainee, Dong-chul Kim, was arrested in October 2015 and sentenced to 10 years in prison with hard labor for espionage. Pompeo said he'd be meeting with senior North Korean leaders. He didn't know if he'd be meeting with Kim. He said, we're prepared to meet with anyone who is speaking on behalf of the North Korean government and can give us solid answers, so we're prepared. I do have to say that the funniest part of this particular story is that 3rd detainee, Dong-chul Kim, right, he was arrested in October 2015. And he's presumably been held in solitary confinement. He's been held away from the world. Imagine his reaction when he arrives in the United States and is met on the tarmac by President Donald Trump, right? He has no idea that Trump is president. It's going to be amazing. He's going to get off the plane and Donald Trump's going to be like, hello, I'm the president now. And he's just going to be like, what? But that's the guy who freed him, right? Okay, that's the guy who got him free. And again, this is the entire point. All the foreign policy geniuses, all the diplomats, they said, Donald Trump is going to blow up the world. Just like George W. Bush. They're all cowboys, all these cowboys. The only example in the recent past, maybe North Korea now, that'd be the other one. The only example in the recent past of a country voluntarily giving up its nuclear weapons would be Libya during the Bush administration. The reason they gave up their nuclear weapons is because George W. Bush invaded Iraq and took down Saddam Hussein, and the American military destroyed Saddam Hussein's military in 3 weeks. And Muammar Gaddafi said, oh boy, that's scary. What if I just hand over this yellow cake to you right now? And the United States said, all right, sure. It turns out that dictators who are scared operate in ways that are much more conducive to the American public interest than dictators who are emboldened. Do you think the Iran deal emboldened dictators, or do you think that the Iran deal made them more afraid of American military might? Do you think that it made them afraid of America's commitment, or do you think that it made them seek America's pusillanimous surrender? Pretty obvious which is which. Because if you were a country pursuing nuclear weapons, you would look at Iran and say, look, I'm going to pursue nuclear weapons as well, because Barack Obama will sign any deal with me. I can make any lie that I want. He will hand me any amount of money. And then in 10 years, I can do what I want anyway. So why the hell not? Right? You think that North Korea wouldn't accept Obama's deal if Obama had put his deal on the table for North Korea? You think that North Korea wouldn't have said, listen, you lift all the sanctions, you give us hundreds of billions of dollars, and we'll promise, we'll cross our fingers and hope to die, we'll cross our hearts and hope to die, that we'll get rid of that nuclear program, Mr. President. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. Do you think that they wouldn't have accepted that deal? Of course they would have accepted that deal, and they would have been lying. They accepted the same deal from Clinton, they accepted the same deal from George W. Bush, and they would have accepted it from Obama anyway. Okay, but with Trump, they don't get to accept that deal, I hope. Right? We hope that President Trump is a stalwart with regard to North Korea, as he has been with regard to Iran. But it's pretty clear the North Koreans think that they're going to have to do something to please President Trump, which is the reason that they just released 3 North Koreans. Remember, I mean, the 3 American citizens from North Korea. Remember, that's 3 American citizens released from North Korea under President Trump. Remember that Otto Warmbier was killed in North Korea. President Trump was the president. I mean, President Obama was the president when Otto Warmbier was taken into custody in North Korea, and he did nothing. 0 things. None. Okay, Otto Warmbier was given back to the United States after he was effectively brain dead, only after Trump took office. So clearly, there's a bit of a math change here. Trump has changed something. And you know that I'm not a guy who idly gives credit to President Trump, but he gets a lot of credit for what he just did on the Iran deal. And so far, what he's been doing on North Korea is showing results.